Hey, um, so it is very late, so I'm in my hot mess room. The lighting is horrible. I'm moving to Australia in like a week and a half, so that's why my room is a hot mess. And I just wanted to give my 2 cents on the election results. Also, if you are familiar with me at all, maybe you know that my face doesn't normally look like this, and I don't normally sound like this. I just got all 4 of my wisdom teeth removed, and there were some complications, not like serious ones, but um, it this area, yeah, this area is very swollen, and okay, moving on. So, I want to talk about my election night because I had some interesting interactions. I work overnights at a hotel, and when I got there, there was like a huge crowd of Trump supporters watching Fox News in the lobby, and I had just had a week off because of the surgery. Um, Normally, I just tell people who put on Fox News that it's a brand standard to have on CNN or the local news, which I don't think that's actually true, but I just say that and I hide the remote because I just like need to think about my own emotional well-being. Um, and I guess those people had been watching Fox News in our lobby for like the whole week I was gone, so I couldn't say anything. Around 2 a.m., they all went to bed except for 3 guys. Um, and I had my one coworker with me. So just to give you an idea of like the eclectic group that I watched the results come in with, there was one Democrat who was in his like late 30s, mid 30s, maybe 40. I'm really bad judging ages. He was a second generation Scottish man, and he was very distressed. He couldn't believe the results, and I wrote down, I have notes, so if I'm looking down, I'm looking at my notes. One thing he said whenever they finally called it for Trump was, he said, are we stupid? I was the only other Democrat there. He said, are we stupid for caring about other people? This election made me feel stupid for caring about other people. And that really like sometimes I feel stupid for caring about other people. So that really resonated with me, especially coming from a white guy who they aren't really in the position where they need to care about other people um, in order to have a good life. So it just really resonated with me that he felt that way. And then that Democrat I was just talking about, his coworker was with us, who was from England. He was British, and he was just here on a business trip. We had a nice chat about Brexit, which was mostly just me complaining and him saying, yeah, the world is horrible. And he said basically that he couldn't believe that our country didn't learn anything from the Brexit situation, but that he placed this huge bet on Trump winning, so the world is fucked and who cares, and he won money on it. They were all totally drunk, by the way. And that was interesting because and the last guest that was with us was an Asian American, and he was a Republican, and he voted for Trump, and he was honestly somehow a very nice guy. I don't know how anyone could look past the blatant racism and sexism and xenophobia and actually believe that like Trump, excuse me, I'm just adjusting my bra on camera, and actually like believe that Trump had a good economic plan, because I, at the end of the day, don't think that he did have any plan, let alone a good one. But this guy thought that, and like I always thought that minorities who supported Trump like hated themselves. Well, that they either hated themselves or that they hated Mexicans more than they cared about themselves, which is weird, and I can't really understand that viewpoint. But yeah, so he was a minority, and he voted for Trump. And my coworker, who is a white female, and she's a Republican, and we have disagreements, but we watch CNN together every night. We have been leading up to this election for months, and one thing that her and the Asian American male who both voted for Trump, they pretty much said they couldn't believe he was elected, and they didn't actually think it was going to happen, which frustrates me to no end. That's how elections work. Every vote counts, or every vote should count. And protest votes, or just voting because you don't think it's actually going to matter, like, those votes add up. So that was, like, totally frustrating to hear from them. And I don't know how they were in a situation, how they felt like they were in a situation as minorities to vote like that, but anyways, obviously I was the youngest person there, and I voted for Hillary Clinton. Obviously, like, you probably can tell which way I was leaning from what I already said, which, like, I have a lot of thoughts and feelings that I'll get to in a second, but I just want to say that it was interesting because I came into the night totally distressed that I was gonna have to watch the results with, like, this huge group of, like, open Trump supporters, and, like, they all fell asleep though. And it turned out we had a pretty good discussion. We all had different viewpoints, and we all had different issues that we thought were the most important, but it wasn't like arguing with someone on Facebook where like 2 seconds into it and I just want to, like, die because I feel like they're so stupid that, like, they don't even know how stupid they are, and they think that, like, probably the same exact thing about me. So it wasn't like that. We did have some back and forth, but it wasn't mean-spirited at all, which I thought was interesting. Okay, moving on though. There are several things going on inside of me personally right now. I just want to talk about them a bit. So first of all, the white feminist in me is like, listen, Anna, you're very busy, you're having health problems, you're having mental health problems, you don't have the emotional energy to think about whether or not you're going to experience World War III in your lifetime and worry about all these other minorities when, as a white woman, you might not have the worst end of it. But then the actual feminist in me comes out and is, like, in a total panic because this is so unacceptable. I literally don't know how long that I will continue to have basic human rights, which is scary. I don't know how long other people will have basic human rights, other women, other minorities. I don't know how our democracy is gonna hold up. Like, the actual feminist in me is going into total disaster mode. And, like, I think I personally, looks like I'm going bald on this side, I think that I personally need to find a balance between caring for myself, my emotional well-being, and making sure that I'm not in a total panic every second of every day, and also doing the right thing, or what I consider the right thing, and fighting for people who don't have, I hate to use the word oppressed because I feel like, I don't know, it's, like, so cringe to me, but, like, just sticking up for people and trying to help people who are not as privileged as I am, and trying to make the world I live in more fair. And I need to find a good balance between that, and I don't think that I have. It's usually sort of one or the other, where I get in these modes where I'm totally riled up and, like, I'll fight anyone, like, come at me, or, like, I just, like, don't care and, like, leave me alone and I'm moving to fucking Australia. Segue. So here's the thing about this election. I haven't felt like I fit in America culturally for a long time, and I'm sure I've said that on this channel before. And Trump winning this election wasn't this, like, major emotional, psychological, like, breaking point like dramatic moment in my life where I was like had this realization, epiphany moment, and suddenly I was like all upset because the values that my country has don't align with my personal values. I didn't have a moment like that during this election, and I feel like, not that people have explicitly said that, but just from hearing what they have said and looking at their social media feed, that's what it sounds like to me. And I'm not even in okay, now I'm on the camera, but yeah, like I didn't have one epiphany where I was like, wow, like this is horrible, and it's a disconnect between what you feel and what is going on in your country, and it feels horrible. But I didn't have that during this election, so I think that's how I'm like soldiering through it. I did have that moment, however, in 2014 when Mike Brown was murdered, and I also worked overnights at a different hotel, and every morning we would get the newspaper, and the newspaper that morning was like about Robin Williams' suicide, and like suicide is so important and mental health is so important to me, but I was just like totally shocked and appalled that like a child was murdered. And his body laid in the street for hours, and like there were all these protests and it wasn't the front page, and I was like, wow. That was the moment I was like, my personal values do not align with the values of the society I live in, and I felt like hopeless. I felt like, how am I ever going to change anything? Like, and that was really the moment that I stopped wanting to live in the United States, because I felt like nothing I ever will do is gonna like change anything. And I feel like a lot of people, like a lot of my friends, are experiencing something like that now, not to the same degree maybe as what I feel, because they're obviously not trying to move to another country, although a lot of people are. That's another story. So I just went on like a million tangents, but to like basically sum up, part of me is like not that affected emotionally, because I'm like, well, I've always felt like I didn't fit in, like my values didn't fit in here, so this isn't really a surprise. On the other hand, I have this complicated relationship with the United States, that is like sort of similar to how like an angsty teenager hates their parents for damaging them. Or it's similar in that I don't actually hate the United States. I just feel very frustrated that this is like where I come from, and where I come from, I'm not proud of it, and it's a frustrating feeling to not fit in your home. So that's sort of why, I don't know, maybe if I was a different person, I would stay and try to change things, but I'm not. I'm the kind of person that runs away from my problems, and yeah. In that vein, though, I'm not moving to Australia because Trump won. I am moving because it has always been my goal to live somewhere else. I was totally, totally miserable in the United States. I haven't, if I was ever talking to you and I just stopped talking to you, or if we were having a conversation, I just never responded, or you saw something I posted that was kind of weird and you were like, is she having a nervous breakdown? Yes, I was having a nervous breakdown. Yeah, I just think living here was really unhealthy for me, so I just took steps to find a way to be happier in my day-to-day life, and that involved leaving. So just putting that out there. So these are my closing thoughts, which I jotted these down when I was half asleep, but sort of at the end of the day, everyone is trying to have the best lives for themselves and their loved ones and their friends. And like, what I guess what I mean by that is one side of our country thinks that the best way to have a great life for themselves is through hatred and through blaming other groups. And I think it's beyond unfortunate, like saying it's unfortunate is an understatement, but it's beyond unfortunate that that fact that people are just trying to have a good life for themselves has been expressed through all of this hatred. And like one half of me is like, well, hopefully it doesn't spiral into a genocidal dictatorship, and the other half of me is like, probably will be fine maybe, and the other half of me is like, but what about basic human rights? In conclusion, I don't have any conclusive thoughts, and I do feel very worried, and I do feel sort of guilty because I am leaving very soon, and I feel like I'm running away from this problem. Maybe it's like not my fight to fight, just because I never really have felt like I belonged here. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see if I even ever post this. Talking makes it so much worse, and like, if only you knew what my face was supposed to look like. Okay, see you on the other side. I can't even smile properly. Okay, bye.